Most parents never question whether they love their baby enough. And honestly, that is not always the question that matters most. The harder question is whether your baby can actually feel that love in the way ordinary life is happening. Because babies do not measure love the way adults do. They do not feel it only in your intention. They feel it in faces, timing, tone, softness, presence, and in the way they are handled when they are small and vulnerable. You can do everything a loving parent does, and still, in certain moments, make your baby feel less emotionally held than you think. This is not about guilt. It is about noticing the ordinary patterns that quietly create that gap. Item 1. Only looking most alive when your baby is easy. The first thing that can make your baby feel less loved than you think is when your warmest face, softest tone, and most delighted energy only seem to appear when your baby is easy. When they are smiling, calm, cute, cooperative, or convenient, you light up. But when they are fussy, clingy, slow, upset, or hard to settle, something in your face changes. Your voice flattens, your warmth drops, your patience gets thinner. Now, of course, parents are human. No one is equally radiant in every moment. That is not the issue. The issue is the pattern. Babies study patterns, not speeches. And if the emotional contrast becomes too sharp too often, your baby may slowly learn something painful without words. Connection feels most available when I am easiest to love. Babies notice not only whether you love them, but when your love feels easiest to access. And personally, I think that is one of the most heartbreaking emotional lessons a baby can begin absorbing without anyone realizing it. Item 2. Making care efficient instead of emotionally warm. The second thing is making care efficient instead of emotionally warm. A diaper gets changed, a bottle gets made, clothes get put on, bedtime happens, everything gets done. From the outside, it looks like good parenting because all the tasks are being completed. But babies do not only feel whether care happened, they feel what kind of emotional climate happened inside the care. A feeding can feel connecting or mechanical. A diaper change can feel gentle or cold. Getting dressed can feel like being helped or like being processed. And that matters because babies feel pace, tone, touch, and facial softness long before they understand language. A baby can be well cared for and still feel underheld if care keeps feeling mechanical. That is what makes this so subtle. Nothing obviously bad is happening. The baby is fed, changed, carried, cleaned, put to bed. But if the emotional warmth keeps thinning out, the baby may feel cared for in body and missed in spirit. To me, this is one of the quietest ways love fails to fully land. Item 3. Treating your baby's need for reassurance like a problem to eliminate. The third thing is treating your baby's need for reassurance like a problem to eliminate. Babies often seek reassurance physically, rhythmically, and repeatedly. They want to be picked up again. They want to be held a little longer. They cry when you move away. They settle best against your body. They keep reaching, not because they are trying to control the room, but because closeness is how they find safety. And yet, adults can start acting as if that need is excessive, inconvenient, or something that should be trained out quickly. That is where the emotional damage begins. Because when a baby has to work too hard for reassurance, closeness can start to feel conditional. The baby may not think that in words, of course, but the body can begin to learn it. My need for comfort is a burden. My reaching is too much. The deeper issue is not whether adults mean well. It is that the emotional message often lands harder than the stated intention. A baby needing too much closeness is usually not seeking power. They are seeking safety. And I think one of the saddest mistakes in parenting is how often those two things get confused. Item 4. Talking about your baby in front of them as if their emotional experience doesn't matter. Yet the fourth thing is talking about your baby in front of them as if their emotional experience does not matter yet. Babies do not understand every word, but they are deeply tuned to tone, facial expression, energy, and the emotional meaning moving around them. So when adults say things like, "She's so dramatic," "He's impossible today," or "Look how needy she is," it does not have to be fully understood in language to still land in the body. Babies are relational long before they are verbal. They feel the stance being taken toward them. They feel what it is like to be talked about instead of emotionally met. And I think adults often underestimate how much a baby can feel simply from the energy of being discussed with irritation, mockery, resentment, or performance. Babies understand emotional stance before they understand explanation. That is what makes this so important. Even when your baby cannot decode the sentence, they can still feel whether the room is holding them with warmth, with contempt, with amusement, or with annoyance. And that emotional meaning matters more than many adults realize. Item 5. Saving presents for performance moments instead of ordinary moments. The fifth thing is saving your brightest presents for performance moments instead of ordinary moments. Some adults become most expressive, delighted, and emotionally alive when the baby is doing something cute, photogenic, impressive, or worth showing someone else. A first clap, a funny sound, a milestone, a perfect little smile for the camera. And of course, those moments are genuinely joyful. But a baby feels most loved not only when they delight you, but when they matter to you, even when nothing impressive is happening. The ordinary moments are where love becomes believable. The quiet feeding, the sleepy cuddle, the fussy afternoon, the unremarkable need, the long stretch where nothing cute is happening and nothing is being documented. That is where trust is built. If all the biggest emotional energy keeps gathering around the baby's highlight reel, while ordinary need gets a flatter version of you, the baby may slowly experience something painful. I feel most seen when I am performing well. But babies build trust from repetition, not from highlight reels. And the deepest kind of love is often felt not in the moments that sparkle, but in the moments that do not. Item 6. Leaving or handing your baby off without emotional bridging. The sixth thing that can make your baby feel less loved than you think is leaving or handing them off without emotional bridging. This is not about never going anywhere, never working, or never letting someone else care for your baby. It is about how the separation feels in the baby's body. Adults often think of a goodbye as something practical. The baby experiences it as something physical, emotional, and nervous system level. A rushed handoff, a sudden disappearance, or a goodbye full of your own stress can land much harder than you intended. Babies do better when separation has some softness around it, even if it is brief. A familiar phrase, a steady face, a predictable rhythm, a tone that says, "Yes, I am leaving, but the world is still safe and I am not vanishing in panic." For a baby, the emotional shape of the goodbye often matters almost as much as the separation itself. And I think adults often underestimate how deeply babies feel transitions when those transitions happen without warmth, ritual, or calm. Item 7. Missing the soft bids and only responding after escalation. The 7th thing is missing the soft bids and only responding after escalation. Many babies do not begin with loud distress. They begin quietly. They look away. They stiffen. They reach. They fuss. They go strangely still. Their tone changes. Their body changes. Their eyes change. Those early signals are often the first version of the message. But when that quieter version keeps failing to land, the message usually returns with more force. That is when adults often say the baby is suddenly dramatic, difficult, or too much, when in reality, the baby may have been communicating long before the crying became impossible to ignore. Many babies do not start loud. They become louder when the softer version of the message keeps failing to land. I think this is one of the saddest misunderstandings in parenting, because a baby who feels underread can end up looking overreactive. And once that happens often enough, the family starts managing the escalation instead of learning the earlier language that came before it. Item 8. Replacing connection with constant stimulation. The 8th thing is replacing connection with constant stimulation. A baby can be entertained, distracted, occupied, and still feel underconnected. That is one of the hidden tensions of modern parenting. There is so much motion, so much noise, so much pressure to keep the baby busy, calm, interested, and continuously receiving something. But stimulation is not the same thing as emotional holding. A baby does not only need a toy, a video, a sound, or a new thing to look at. A baby also needs rhythm, predictability, lower intensity moments, real faces, and the kind of quiet presence that lets the nervous system settle instead of brace. When sensory life gets too crowded, relational depth can start getting pushed to the edges. I think one of the hidden problems of modern parenting is that a baby can be constantly stimulated and still feel strangely underloved in the moments that matter most. A baby does not only need to be occupied, they need to feel emotionally settled. And that often happens not in the loudest moments, but in the slower ones. Item 9. Turning distress into content, humor, or a story for other adults. The 9th thing is turning your baby's distress into content, humor, or a story for other adults before emotionally meeting the baby first. This does not mean one nervous laugh makes you a bad parent. That is not the point. The deeper issue is the pattern underneath it. A baby is overwhelmed, frightened, frustrated, or dysregulated, and instead of being met first, the moment becomes something to narrate, record, laugh about, or perform for someone else. But babies still have the feeling, even when adults are turning it into a scene. What feels small and funny to an adult can still feel lonely and overwhelming inside a baby. And I think that matters more than people realize. A baby does not need an audience in that moment. A baby needs presence. They need someone whose first instinct is not to turn the experience outward, but to move inward and help them through it. The danger here is not humor itself. It is distance. It is when the baby's inner state starts being treated like spectacle instead of signal. Item 10. Repeatedly making care feel burdened. The 10th thing may be the deepest one of all. Repeatedly making care feel burdened. This rarely happens through one dramatic moment. It happens through atmosphere. Too many sighs, too much resentment in the tone, too much roughness in ordinary handling, too much "not again" hanging in the air, too much emotional weight around perfectly ordinary needs. Of course, every parent gets overwhelmed. Every parent gets tired. This is not about one bad morning or one hard week. It is about the pattern the baby lives inside. Babies learn very early who makes them feel safe, who feels glad to receive them, and what their needs seem to cost the room. One of the deepest hurts for a baby is not only unmet need, it is the feeling that their need itself is unwelcome. To me, this is where shame is useless and honesty is everything. Parents do get overwhelmed. The real work is noticing when overwhelm has started becoming the atmosphere of care. Because once care begins to feel burdened too often, love may still be present, but it may stop feeling easy for the baby to trust. So no, this is not a video about parents who do not love their babies. It is about the small, repeated moments where love gets blocked, thinned out, or mistranslated in everyday life. And the hopeful part is this: the same tiny moments that hurt can also become the tiny moments that heal. Babies do not need perfect parents. They need parents who notice, soften, reconnect, and keep learning how love actually lands from the baby's side. They need adults who understand that care is never only about getting things done. It is also about what the care feels like while it is happening. This is about awareness, not shame, because the smallest moments in parenting are often the moments a baby feels most completely. Your baby may not remember the details of these early days, but their nervous system will remember how love felt. And sometimes the work is not loving your baby more. It is noticing the places where your baby is struggling to feel the love that is already there.